I want to welcome everybody to the daily cheat sheet here with the dude. And Golan is in Israel enjoying himself, but he said, don't say hello to anybody. And I thought that was very nice of Golan. But no, I kid. Golan's in Israel. He'll be back hopefully tomorrow or Thursday. And I want to remind everybody to please follow and subscribe to the show. It's extremely helpful. As you're listening, just hit follow, hit download, and give us that 5-star review. It's extremely, extremely, extremely helpful. Men would agree. Everybody would agree.
Yeah, the professor is missed. It's not the same without him, but he's having a great time touring Israel, shooting pilots, not on planes. Um, yeah, he's a great success, Golan.
He is, and we're really proud of him. Man, I got it. So I'm getting into this back and forth, and I realize like there's people really do have cognitive dissonance, like this reality thing could smack them in the face, and it's like you're arguing over certain things that don't make so people, especially when it comes to Sliwa, I'm getting into these debates with people and I'm trying to just tell them the numbers.
So we're talking
It's
about the New
just
York mayor race. Curtis Lee was the conservative candidate who has about 12% of the vote. And if he would drop out, Cuomo has a chance at winning. So now you're arguing with people about what?
people are like arguing with me like no, because I had made the point like at a certain point him not dropping out is a very grifter style move, right? Because what is stopping him from dropping out? There's big money always. First of all, this is essentially his third time running, which nobody wants to, which nobody brings up. He's 81 years old. I don't know how he became the candidate. Well, it's New York, so. But if he drops out within the margin of error, he also made the claim that he was offered $10 million by somebody. How do we know, right? Unless he says the person's name. And secondly, it would be illegal for anybody to offer you $10 million to drop out of the campaign. So it's not like somebody could just say, hey, here's 10 million. You could get, you could wink, wink, get a job somewhere, maybe, man. Like, Trump was, I think, trying to do, especially with Adams. And if the actual mayor could drop out of the race, I think Sliwa could drop out of the race.
It's really selfish of him not to drop out. And if there's anyone that hates Cuomo, I'm number one on that list. But as far as what's good for New York, Cuomo's a million times better than Mendamni. So I would vote for Cuomo. And I don't get it why a lot of these people are not pushing harder for Cuomo. And Sliwa is being pushed pretty hard to get out of the race. I believe his boss in the Republican Party, whoever that is, asked him to get out. So there is pressure against him to get out. He's just not listening. He's just being very selfish about this.
Listen, I agree with you 100%. And it here's the problem. People and this is one of the fun things I enjoy doing about the show is like trying to like put in perspective certain things, right? So, until Trump, we had in one Pennsylvania since 1992. So that was 24 years until 2016. We all think he won, many of us think he won in 2020 and he won again in 2024. But at the end of the day, it's not a Republican state. New York has not been, New York always used to have one Republican senator and one Democrat senator. But for the most part, our mayors have been atrocious Democrats. And he's especially leading Mamdani with illegal immigration, with illegal immigrants or
But they all
illegal
vote
immigrants.
there. They all vote.
He's voting, he's leading with immigrants, whether they're legal or not, wink, wink, who the hell knows? But I was glad to see that Jews are voting 61% in favor of Cuomo. So that's one less thing people, yes, it's still shocking that 40% would, but I'm actually surprised it's not the reverse number. And he's
Besides
leading among all those demographics except illegal immigrants or
illegal immigrants
illegal.
and Satmar Hasidim. So there's a sect of Hasidim that are the ones with the big furry hats, and they believe that Israel shouldn't exist. And they believe that because they believe that it should take the Messiah to come and then the state of Israel should be created. And if you create it before that event happens, you're a heretic. So they really believe that they should be living under Palestinian or Arab rule and subjugated, and you're supposed to be just punished by people until God rescues you. You can't self rescue. That's their whole take on this. So you might see some protests out there with these Hasidim. They are lunatics. They are not the majority. There's about 100,000 of them worldwide, and they are absolute Looney Tunes.
Well, I think the hats, when they're all in one place, makes it look like a larger crowd than it actually is. And I'm not
And they're
saying that,
not the only ones with those hats, but that's
yeah,
just there's
yeah.
by now there's like 25 different sects or
But
groups with those hats.
but that's neither here nor there. I think it's just important to lay out the numbers for people. Where Cuomo leads with, but it's surprising because it's 41% of Catholics and it's 63%. So the Catholic thing, that's actually surprising, extremely surprising. But
Why did you expect more Catholics to be voting for Cuomo?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Uh,
they
uh, Especially if I'm looking at the last election with Trump, how well he did with Catholics. And I get it. Cuomo's a Democrat. He's not a Republican. But listen, and people want to say screw it, that's fine. I get it. If people want to say let Mamdani win and vote Republican, fine. Just know that this is not going to just stay in New York.
Well, Bill O'Reilly also laid out like the events that are going to happen after if Mendamni wins. You're going to have flight. Anyone that can afford to get out of the city will get out. The companies and corporations that don't want to be taxed up the wazoo are all going to move to Florida or Texas or some other state. Um, and then you're going to be in that death spiral where they're going to have to squeeze more tax out of the fewer people that are left, and he Mendamni saying that he wants to tax white neighborhoods more than anyone else, which seems blatantly racist to me. But if these liberals, lunatics want to vote for that guy, then they're making their bed and they're going to have to lay in it. I sent out a message to a group of New Yorkers that I'm on. We have a WhatsApp group. I said, guys, you better get out there and push people to vote like your life depends on it. You're forewarned. This is the time. If this guy does get in, remember, we warned you and we're not coming to rescue you.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And again, we've had this discussion on the show. Do people really need to hit bottom in order for things to change, right? And I always use Dinkins as that, New York really hit a bottom with Dinkins, and then when it was ready for change, it got Giuliani. And so sometimes a city, a state has to hit bottom. I think California has to hit a bottom. I think many cities across America. And I don't know, I don't know, when you look at a place like Chicago, you know, let's say an average of 30 to 40 people are getting shot per weekend, and I might be kind with that number. If that's not a bottom for you, I don't know what the bottom actually is. So I
Look at
want to move on
Detroit.
though. Yeah. Well,
Some of these
yeah,
places
yeah.
never hit bottom. They keep
Yeah,
going down.
I
It
know.
just keeps, I we lived when we lived in Toronto, Canada. We used to go to Buffalo, New York a lot. And if you want to see some like beat up cities, go to some of those Rust Belt, the Philadelphias and the upstate New York. I mean, you see old towns that used to be vibrant and beautiful with, those colonial style houses that are all just dilapidated and just looks like crackhead land. So there are places that are just beaten down and they never come back.
Yeah, you know what? That's an exceptional point. It really is. And here's the thing. I think why it's really important to stress the point you're saying is because I'm sure as it was going on, people were like, "Well, this can't last forever, right? It's going to turn around. It's
And what
Detroit."
happens is people leave.
Yeah,
That's the thing is that, when you have just bad policies, anyone who cares gets out. They say, you know what? It's not my fight. I can move. I can afford to move. They sell their house. They get out while they can. They move to a beautiful neighborhood. And next thing you know, they're living out their days in Boca Raton while Rochester, New York is just, melting away. It's just urban decay.
Okay, let's move on a little bit though. I want to move on to what's going on with Russia. Trump is backing out. He's, canceled this conference with Putin because Putin's unwilling to negotiate. And anybody that listens to this show knows that we think they did a horrific job with the money afterwards with Zelensky, but at the end of the day, Putin started this, and he's really forcing Trump's hand. And we're not like the Putin hour. I'm not a fan of his. I think he's a psychotic murderer. And I think Trump's getting to the point, man, of the 61 day type thing with Putin. And I don't know what that looks like with Putin in Russia. I really don't. Uh, what are your thoughts on that quickly?
I don't think it's a good idea to freeze the war along the current lines, but I think what's happening there is they are using the same playbook that they tried to do in Gaza, where they said, you know what? Give the hostages back. Let's just stop the fighting. And then we could figure out the phase two, the disarmament later. And I think he's trying to do the same thing here by saying, let's just freeze the conflict along the current lines and we could pick it up later. The problem there is that um, Ukrainians have a fort. We talked about this on previous episodes. There's a fort in the Donbass that the Russians can't get through. The Ukrainians built this thing up where it's basically impenetrable. And Russia's demanding that that be given to them in this freezing of the lines. They want the entire Donbass region. And the problem with that is just like the last peace accords they had with the Russians and the Ukrainians, when the Ukrainians were convinced to give up their nuclear weapons, was that the Russians said they wouldn't invade and then they invaded. So next time that they invade, they're going to have the Donbass and that fort that the Ukrainians spent, I don't know, 10 or 20 years building. So I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good strategy. I like freezing it along the lines, but don't say that you're going to have to cede the territory and leave it as is. And the Russians are asking for even more territory.
Yeah, well, they're always going to ask for more territory. That's exactly who Putin is. I mean, let's not kid ourselves with who Putin is. And listen, I understand people's anger over how money was spent in the Ukraine after the invasion, and I really get it. I mean, there was zero checks and balances. There were empty checks that were cut. I get it. I'm not defending what they did with the money, but at the same time, I will never defend Putin and his invading of the Ukraine. I want to move on though to the House is and I'm really happy they're doing this. They're putting John Brennan. They're referring him to the former CIA director to the Justice Department for prosecution, which I think is a great move for lying under oath. And it's interesting, man. We have it on video that he lied under oath. And this is what I've discussed before. We have actual video of him lying under oath with the laptop, with the 51 Intel agents. I mean, if it were me, I would put them all. I don't know if they have enough lawyers to prosecute all these cases.
But they need to go after all of them and do it all swiftly. So they should take the same approach that was taken to the Jan 6 guys, where they just round them all up and throw charges at all of them and assign prosecutors to each one and get convictions. So I'm glad that they did it. I would like to see more of it, a lot more of it. If you don't dismantle the entire machine that created the Russia hoax, that uh, sidetracked Trump's first presidency, then it's just going to repeat itself and it's going to come back even stronger. So, with everything that the left has done, all of the nefarious things from the DEI stuff to the trans stuff to the Russia hoax and everything else, if you don't dismantle it to its core, get rid of all of it, it's going to come back with a vengeance.
Agreed 100%. And you are listening to the Daily Cheat Sheet. We'll apologize beforehand. We're still having issues with our Riverside app, so we are relegated to Zoom. And Golan is not here to sharpshoot everything for us. He's in Israel, doing a lot of work, which
He's
we
doing a lot
love
of
that he's doing
sharpshooting
it.
out there.
And JD Vance is in Israel today. and I'm very happy to hear the words coming out of his mouth. I sort of like that there's a unified front with as far as how they're going to deal with Hamas. Uh, and the only people that aren't really grasping the concept is Hamas. And this was always going to be the issue. The issue is how you deal with them now. I mean, supposedly they've doubled up in numbers. You know, they're always going to be able to double up in numbers. And who is going to be the ones that actually have to deal with them, man? I don't want to see American forces on the ground. I don't want to see. I don't even know if I want to see Egyptian forces on the ground. This is a very messy situation, the second phase of this ceasefire deal, because the Arab nations are scared to death to do anything about this.
Well, really, we need to pay attention to is Turkey and Qatar, what those two countries are doing on the ground. And the last thing that I heard was that Qatar offered to rebuild the entire Gaza by themselves, meaning they'll pay for the entire thing, whatever it is, $45 billion to rebuild it. And the Egyptians are smacking their lips because all of the construction material will be coming through Egypt. So they're looking at making a ton of money on that.
But
But
that doesn't make Saudi Arabia happy, right? That's the
no,
rub,
it
right?
doesn't. And Trump's going to meet with MBS Mohammed bin Salman, I believe, next week.
Yeah.
So the Saudis, they've been kind of playing it pretty chill. They are way outsized when it comes to them versus Qatar, yet Qatar somehow weaseled their way into this administration and had a prominent place on everything to do with the Middle East. The Saudis should have been the ones to take that role, but the Saudis got burned by Biden. So Saudis had a great relationship with Trump in his first term. And then Biden came in and called them a pariah state and said he's not going to meet with them and he's not going to have anything to do with them. And then when he needed oil, because oil prices started going up because of the Russian war in Ukraine, he went over there and fist bumped them. So that hypocrite had to eat his words, and still they didn't give him the oil. I thought that was such a great move, ballsy move. But
Yeah, that was actually hysterical. I love
fantastic.
when
Then when he went over there and begged for
I
oil, and he
love
gave
when
it to
they
him.
absolutely. I love when you bring up certain things or anybody on the show when we bring up when you guys bring up stuff from the past because it's so easy to forget. And that's why when you say we've brought this up before, it's always important to bring stuff up again because there's so much has happened that it makes it easy to forget. And then so many things get mixed up together that it becomes confusing. You could separate the Mueller report and you could separate, remember the 51 intel agents were the laptop, all promising that it was, not Russian, that it was Russian disinformation. It gets so confusing.
Yeah, I mean, again, so the the things to note is these two countries that are pro-Hamas. They are the backers of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is Hamas is just one organization within the Muslim Brotherhood. CARE, Council on Islamic Relations here in the US, is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood is banned in a lot of Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt. They want nothing to do with those guys. But Turkey and Qatar, they're their backers. Muslim Brotherhood is the one that basically put forth the ideology that the Islamic way of living up until recently didn't work. The Muslim nations were colonized by the French and the British and everyone else, and they wanted a new way to go about it. And their new way was basically total reliance on Islam, not just as a religion, but also as a governing practice, which is where Sharia law and all of that other crazy stuff comes in. So that's the Muslim Brotherhood. And these guys now have a huge role to play in rebuilding of Gaza, and they're going to get to say who the policemen are, who the good guys and bad guys are, who's breaking ceasefires, like all of that stuff. And that's where it gets really dangerous because you're going to have enemies. I saw a quote from Erdogan today, and I haven't verified it yet, but it was basically him saying that Israel is done. They're going to be
No, this
cooked.
was this was actually a few days ago, where he called for the destruction of Israel and in the prayer. So that's absolutely 100% verified. One of the one of the MKs in Israel, Chickley, came out and said that this is 100% the truth. So
Yeah,
there you are.
yeah. I just saw it. He's called for the destruction of Israel. He's basically just another jihadist in a suit.
Yeah, no, listen,
Destroy and devastate Zionist Israel. Turkish president prays for Jewish state's destruction amid mass protests. So he's one of those guys that every time things are going wrong in his country, he attacks Israel, and then all of his little goat followers, they all go, "Oh, he's a good guy. Let's not talk about our economy that's in the toilet or the lira that's worth nothing. Let's all get behind him because he's going to be the leader that will attack Israel." So the
listen,
problem,
you're 100% correct. It's funny, as we were doing the show, I heard somebody like jingling the keys in my door, and I'm like, "What's going on?" So that's why I got a little confused for a second. But I want to move on though, because you know, Hamas. I'm very, for a long time we were calling for Israel to release footage of October 7th. And they're actually releasing now the footage. Not many people are carrying this footage of what Hamas is doing. So I want to read you what Hamas said. Hamas defends executing Palestinians. This is a transitional phase. Mohammed Nizal, a senior official with Hamas terrorist organization, defended his group's mass execution of Palestinian civilians on Friday after President Trump warned Hamas could face uh, further destruction. So, listen, so what now they're just going to do it secretly. They're not going to do it openly. That this is who they are. This is who they are. This is who they have been, and this is who they are. So any notion that you're going to get the Palestinians, you're going to get to change, you're going to get I don't see a path forward in this regard. I truly do not. I don't know how you de-radicalize people that have been radicalized for so long. If you could think of something, please, God, let me know. I just don't see how you change. At the end of the day, if people don't acknowledge your right to exist, where exactly is the starting point? I always used to say, men, to people, how do you negotiate with people that are willing to live in a cave? What do? Offer them another cave?
they need to re-educate the entire population there. So they start with the kids. The problem is that you also need to win the war. And if you allow Turkey and Qatar to come in and then they prop the guys up, or they say, okay, take off your Hamas badge and put on a Palestinian Authority badge, and you're all of a sudden laundered, you're clean. Um, that's not going to work. It's not going to fix the problem. And then, we have major powers there that are not working to alleviate the root causes of the problem, which is the education system and their indoctrination that it's all their land. It's completely made up. They need to be told plainly and clearly that they are the colonizers and it is not their land. And Israel is going to be gracious by once again allowing them to occupy part of Gaza. Like it really needs to be laid out super clearly as to what this ceasefire and peace plan is and not allow them to reframe it as a win somehow because that's only going to cause them to want to do this again.
Yeah, that's actually a really fairly decent point you just made. You're you I always the reason I say that is because I always say to people, history is written, obviously the quote is history is written by the victors, right, or the winners. And the problem is in America, the victors of academia were leftists. So they've been writing the history books for 80, 70, 70 or 80 years. And when you look in that area, if it looks like Hamas won, they're gonna keep perpetuate that whole myth. It's gonna go into the teachings, it's gonna go into the books, it just so when Jared Kushner talks about, and we brought this up yesterday, when he talks about Israel's going to have to do more to integrate the Palestinians. I don't even know what that means. I don't think he knows what it means because it's an impossibility. They've tried it before. I don't know what more you could offer them.
Well, I think the Israeli Arabs who are uh, Palestinians, they could identify as Palestinians. They need to be clearly given a choice. You're either Israeli or you're Palestinian. And if you're Palestinian, you have a right to move to Gaza and get the hell out of the country. And if you want to be Israeli, you be Israeli, right? The Israelis call them Israeli Arabs, but I know a lot of them that self-identify as Palestinian, and I always wondered, why are you choosing to identify with them over the country that gave you citizenship and shelter and prosperity? And you're a doctor. I know guys that are went through medical school in Israel. They're thriving. Most of the pharmacists, a lot of doctors and nurses, they're all Arabs, and a lot of them after October 7th started identifying as Israeli Arabs instead of Palestinians. But it was always weird to me that they self-identified. And I'm not just talking about the ones that live in the West Bank and Ramallah. And I get it. Over there, if you identify as anything else, they'll chop your head off, within 2 hours. But the ones that actually live in Israel proper. So maybe that's what he's talking about. I hope that's what he's talking about.
I
But
want to ask you another question. You're really sharp and smart when it comes to users on X and all this stuff, and it's so amazing how this story of the execution are being buried. But again, I'm like, what do you say? Because you engage with people often that disagree with you, and how are people not it's like how are people not defending the Palestinians that are getting executed? Where are the queers for Palestine right now? Where are the people that are for free Palestine right now? Well, no, I mean, seriously, where are they? Because those same Palestinians that you were accusing the Jews of Israel committing genocide for are actually really being slaughtered in mass numbers, man. And this is one of those things that the God of the health ministry is not going to give an accurate number. This is going to be like, so we have to assume it's like if they multiplied everything by 1,000 when it came to Israel, they're doing the exact reverse when it comes to how many Palestinians are being killed.
no, they're still going to count the numbers. They're just going to attribute it all to Israel, like they did with everything. So 67,000. How many of those were killed by failed rockets that you guys fired yourselves that fell on your own people? How many of those were just you guys settling scores and killing people inside of Gaza? How many of those were actual fighters? They never do any of that. How many of them died of natural causes? They don't even do that. So they're all martyrs. They were all killed by Israel. They were all children and women. Barely any of them were adult males. That's the narrative that they're going with. But it actually exposes the pro-Palestine um, uh, fraud that all those groups have, because you're seeing them murdering. I saw them breaking the legs of a black Gazan citizen. They call him Abid, so they're calling him a slave, and they broke his legs because he posted a video about a month ago thanking Trump and the GHF because he got food. And he goes, it's the first time that I got free food while in Gaza. There's billions of dollars of aid that was being sent in, and it wasn't being given to the Palestinians. It was being hijacked by Hamas and then sold to the Palestinians. So, a bag of wheat was $70. Even the BBC was reporting the prices of food without realizing that it's a cell phone. If the food is being sold, that means it was stolen by Hamas and being sold to the population that it was given to, and they should have been giving it to them for free. They don't even connect those two dots. So the Free Palestine people, they don't want free Palestine. They don't care about any of that. They just hate Jews. They hate the Israelis. They are demented. And that's why I'm saying that Israel just needs to do what it needs to do, regardless of what these people say. They need to do that. I'm not absolving Israel for not having a good PR team out there countering all this stuff ahead of time. But what I am saying is that they just need to continue killing the bad guys.
Well, they are trying to now by releasing the video, so they actually have caught on a little bit. But again, the major problem is, and this goes to show you it wouldn't have mattered. Nobody's covering the actual stories, right? So it was everybody was saying the other day, Israel is breaking the ceasefire. Here's the deal. I want for people that are listening to the show, everything we bring up, I beg of you to fact check. Okay, I beg of you to fact check. So going back to the show, neither men nor I want Cuomo to be the mayor of New York. We're just choosing him over a communist jihadist that could literally do serious damage to the city and state of New York. Okay, so that's why we're bringing it up. We're former New Yorkers who have lived through the worst of times in New York and some of the best of times in New York. So, but getting to this thing, we both know the topography of Israel. We both understand the all of that stuff in regards to Israel. So none of this is hyperbolic. This is all facts. And the reality is that nobody is picking up these stories. In fact, men, they're doing the exact reverse. And we could have predicted how this playbook would have come out. And again, where are these people on campuses? We know they're not going to come out on the campuses, and but nobody's calling them out for not doing it.
Yeah, it's telling. I'm just glad that the New York Post is out there pushing it, but almost nobody else is.
Imagine it, right? It's like Rupert Murdoch and Fox News. So it's important to note Fox News, New York Post, Wall Street Journal, all Rupert Murdoch. I'm sure Sky in Australia is reporting on this, but that's about it. And man, I
Yeah.
got to tell you something. There's the most wild disconnect. I was watching Club Random with Bill Maher, and he had on Meathead, Rob Reiner on. And Rob Reiner is like he's talking about how the conservatives own the media, right? And he's like, and I'm thinking to myself, and we've weaponized the Department of Justice. And his whole thing is, how do you talk to people that don't know 2 + 2 = 4? And I'm looking at him going, you don't realize 2 + 2 = 4 because that you cannot see how weaponized the DOJ was against for God for 15, 16 years against conservatives that everything you're saying is being done by you. So I don't know where that conversation starts. I don't know where the conversation ends, but this is where we're at, man. I mean, it's freaky times.
Freaky times indeed.
And sorry for that little off tangent thing, but I just happened to be watching it, saying to myself, "My God!" Like at least I was able to admit that George Bush made mistakes. At least I'm able to look back on the past and say, man, did we make a lot of mistakes? These people have zero ability, man.
Zero. I just saw recently Newsom, Gavin Newsom posted a picture of the White House because they're building the ballroom for
Yeah. Where Trump now is asking the DOJ to cover it from his legal bills. But go on.
to cover the ballroom.
Yeah. Neither here nor there. I don't care where the money comes from. Build that thing. I thought what you brought up yesterday was such a good point about we need to be building as much as we can. I thought it was such and it starts in Washington.
Of
And
course.
I thought that was such a good point you made.
Yeah. Well, Newsom said that Trump is tearing apart the White House like he's tearing apart our Constitution. So we responded that said instead of wasting 300 million on Prop 50 special election, our politicians, Gavin Newsom, could fund 4,800 new teachers, 2,000 more police officers, or 4,000 more firefighters. So um, I just wish Gavin Newsom would resign, go away, let someone else take over. It's not going to happen, but that little chameleon just keeps on giving.
Yeah. Hey, well, listen, I mean, I think every side is guilty of having these chameleons there that are nothing but grifters. And I think this is extremely important to talk about because, Tucker Carlson, our favorite guy, had on his show this guy named Dr. Andrew Hoff, who is spreading. And again, I know you hate this word, but this is blood libel when you're saying that the COVID was, basically Jewish Ashkenazi Jews were immune from getting COVID. And I think the two of us, for people that are not familiar with what an Ashkenazi Jew is, usually it's Eastern Europe. It's Jews that came from Eastern Europe are considered Ashkenazi Jews. And as Mend lost his mother to COVID, and there were tons of people I know, and people can say, "Oh, that's anecdotal data." It's absolutely ridiculous, Mend. But for him to be, I, people keep on bringing this up, but it's extremely disappointing that there aren't conservatives screaming louder and saying, like I said last week when he was at the White House for the Charlie Kirk's memorial, and I'm watching him with people there, and I know people won't say this out loud, but I don't care. I was disgusted that he was there. I'm disgusted that Tucker is speaking at Turning Point USA tomorrow. I'm absolutely disgusted by this. And this is a guy, when you bring up lies like this, men, you're putting people's lives in danger. Anti-Semitism is an all-time high. Christian crimes, I'm sure, are through the roof, especially in places like Canada. You have this is absolutely insane. There's nobody calling him out on it, man.
Yeah, I mean, Christian lives in Canada is pales in comparison to what's going on to the Christians in Nigeria. There's an actual jihadi-led genocide going on against the Christians in Nigeria. As far as Tucker being on Turning Point, I don't feel good about that. I think Turning Point could make it whatever decisions they want with their organizations. That's fine. And I get to decide whether or not I'm going to tune in, and I will not. So I am voting with, my eyeballs, my feet. I'm just not going to participate in anything like that. And I wish they would let Tucker go, or at least let him know, hey, you're going off the rails. The amount
Going?
of focus, or you've gone off the rails, the amount of focus you've placed on the good guys, Israel, versus the bad guys, Hamas, Qatar, Turkey, something's wrong there. And try to get him, set him straight, or cut him off. He should not be platformed. But and I'm talking about Turning Point platform. That said, the Ashkenazi thing is complete bunk. It's I remember RFK mentioned something about that
Yeah, that's how it led into that. He was like
early in
sort
the
of
I think it
citing
was
it.
early in the pandemic. They
Yeah.
thought that there were variants that were less susceptible to certain ethnic groups. And I think they thought Asians of some sort and Ashkenazi Jews were two of the groups that they thought that the variant was less susceptible to. As someone who lost someone very dear to me to COVID, I know it's complete bullshit. So there's that.
Yeah, but there's more than there's that. This is becoming once this is in the ether, man, there's no taking it back.
I love
And
Ted Cruz's response to that.
yeah, so do I. But the problem
His
is,
response, let's just say it, was, oh, now the Jews run China too.
yeah,
They were running the Wuhan. What are you talking about? So
yeah, no, and listen, I absolutely love what Ted Cruz said. And somebody said, and Europeans blamed Jews for the Black Death that led to massacres. And this is what we're talking about. This isn't like a little thing. And I don't have kids. I worry about your kids. I worry about my nieces and nephews. This isn't this. The fact that, I don't care about saying this. The fact that Tucker's son is head of comms for JD Vance scares the crap out of me. Okay, Tucker Carlson should have lost his, the American Spectator, and I brought this up. Go to spectator.org. Fantastic, fantastic news site. And they struggle for money. They really do. And having Tucker at a dinner would have been huge for them, but they rescinded their invitation, because of his going to interview Putin. And I really gained a lot of respect for them. So this is like, where the hell, it can't just be Ted Cruz and it can't just be Mark Levin, because at a certain point, it's like the two screaming people. Where is everybody? Why are people terrified of Tucker, man? I don't understand it.
I don't think it's terrified. I think some people secretly like what he has to say. So
Okay, that's a fair point. Okay, that's a fair point, but I'm sure there are a lot of people that are not okay with what he's saying. Listen, they had just arrested somebody, right? That was that was threatening to uh kill Jewish influencers, right? So Laura Loomer, what's his name? The guy that was that
Shapiro.
Candace is Josh Hammer and a couple others. They just arrested. This isn't like a joke. People are getting killed. People forget the embassy where two Jews were killed outside the embassy. I mean, this is a continuous thing, man. I mean, forget Josh Shapiro's house being, firebombed. The there comes a point where people are going to have to say enough's enough with this Tucker crap. Enough. And it has to come from somebody like JD Vance. It has to come. And until this is my issue with JD Vance. You can't have it both ways. And it's going to be asked in 2028 when you run for president, if you decide to. These are questions JD Vance is going to have to answer to. Okay. He's putting our lives in danger. And it's not right.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that. I honestly, I don't know what could be done besides doing what I'm doing, which is you just tune Tucker out. I stop listening to his show and I won't tune in if he's on. So if TPUSA is having him on, that would be the moment I would turn it off. And if they start seeing the stats drop and realize that he's losing influence, then they might let him go. The fear is that he might be picking up influence. He might be picking up all these people that really buy into that stuff. And there's a lot of them out there. It's crazy. You're seeing the shift. What he's doing almost single-handedly is he's taking people that had conservative values and he's turning them into pro-jihadis, anti-Western bots. They're out there repeating and reposting his nonsense or they're commenting on it. I've looked at it. I've seen a whole bunch of that. That is a bit concerning. Um, we just need, we need more people to just cut him off.
And the last thing I want to bring up, and we haven't brought this up, is I want to congratulate CBS for, this isn't spoken about enough, and everybody loves. I know always took, and I brought this up, the crap on Hollywood, but Skydance, which bought Paramount, which bought CBS, they're trying to buy Warner Brothers, is run by Larry Ellison's son, and he hired Barry Weiss, who I don't think there's a better if you like looked up a centrist, she would appear. And she asked CBS News staffers, um, she asked them a provocative question: Why does the country think you're biased? Um, uh, and the exchange was met with stunned awkwardness. And I think what a starting out question if you're going to be sort of running the news division to actually ask the people why it is people hate them. That's essentially what she asked them. Why do people not trust you, and why do people loathe you?
I love Barry Weiss. She's, I think you said it well. She's a centrist. She started out the New York Times, which I despise. She left the New York Times, I think it was early COVID, because of their nonsense. She had a viral moment where she was on CNN, Brian Stelter. He was like, "Why do you think people have such a low trust in the mainstream media?" And she just rattled off 10 different reasons of things that they lie about, that they skew, that they omit. And to his face, let him know that CNN and Stelter was the problem. And now she's running CBS. I mean, that is so fantastic. That fat, pompous guy now has to look up to Barry Weiss. She's, a boss now. So I think it's great. That said, she's not conservative. She's not a Republican. She's a Democrat. She's an old school Democrat, but she's normal. She's got her head on straight. She's got the reasoning down. So if she sees something that even the Democrats are touting that's wrong, she calls it out. And she's been calling it out since she started the free press after leaving the New York Times. So I think she's great. I think she's excellent.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And it doesn't always mean we're going to agree with her and everything. Although
You don't have
I
to.
probably, although you don't have to, right?
But the
You
thing is
absolutely,
that what you know is that she's an honest broker. She's not going to be pushing some agenda because it's part of the party line. She calls it like she sees it. She's calling those balls and strikes. So at least there's that. If you have that, there's something to work with. If you have someone who's an ideologue, and no matter what evidence you put in front of them, they still will hold on to that thing that, no kings or Nancy Pelosi is just and great and moral. I had an argument, not an argument, just a little back and forth with a friend of mine on Instagram. I sent them a post. It was a black girl talking about the origins of the Republican Party. It was basically started by, I think, 200 black guys and 20 white guys because they wanted to fight against the spread of slavery to all the rest of the states. And, his response was, both parties are not what they used to be. And the right is way more dangerous today. And I wish it would all just tone down. And I just wrote back, I said, I respectfully disagree. I'm not going to argue with him. I'm not going to try to convince him of anything. Trying to argue with one person one on one is futile and pointless. Get in front of an audience and then do it. And that's what we're trying to do.
yeah, 100%. And I love you for it. I love our listeners. And I don't know if you saw this, but this was, first of all, I want to ask you one more question before we leave. And then I just want to get to this funny thing because I think it's hysterical what Israel did. But how what do you think Trump's timetable? And I know Vance said no to the timetable, but it's going to be impossible to keep this footage in of what's going on in Gaza with their slaughter and butchering of the Palestinians and the Bedouins and whoever else is in front of them. How many more events like this do you think I know it's an impossible question, but that's got to be a short fuse that they're dealing with right now.
Well, what's happening is that the Hamas guys are attacking the Israelis, breaking the ceasefire, and then Israel's dropping a ton of bombs and taking out tons
But
of
I'm
innocent
referring
civilians
strictly to what they're doing to their own.
to their own people. Um, Nothing's going to happen there. So you're going to have the Dagmush. I think they're the biggest clan that opposed Hamas. And it's funny because you hear the news media call them a gang, as
Yeah,
if
I
it's
know.
like, as if it's Hamas, the good guys, against the bad gang. No, they're not a bad gang. They just protected their neighborhood and wanted no Hamas guys in there. I'm surprised that they allowed Hamas to sneak in the ambulances and kill 56 of their people. It's a lot of people. Um, but I don't think this administration is going to do anything if they keep on killing Palestinians because the line that Turkey and Qatar is giving the administration is, oh, no, no, no. Palestinian leadership, the Hamas guys, they don't agree with that at all. That's not them. These are just rogue gangs. And that's been their excuse forever. That's exactly what they do. What do you think they did in that's the Hezbollah Lebanese playbook, where you have a government that's weak and then you have a terrorist organization that's stronger than the government. Terrorist organization does something and the government comes down and goes, no, 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 we didn't mean that. Don't come and attack our country. That was not what we intend to do. We apologize for that. And then you have the terrorist organization do it again. And then the government comes out and says, oh, no, don't do that. So that's exactly what's happening. Turkey and Qatar are convincing the president that the Palestinian leadership is against these break-in of the ceasefire by their fighters. And they're going, oh, these are just ragtag groups of Hamas guys that didn't
Yeah.
get the message. That's just lone wolves. That's just a couple of guys. It's not. This is exactly their tactic. So what's going to happen is it's going to go back and forth like this a few times. And when they're killing Palestinians, Israel's not going to get involved. But when they
Well,
kill
they
some
can't get
Israeli
involved.
soldiers, when they kill some Israeli soldiers, and the administration says, "Oh, that wasn't them. That was just a little ragtag." Israel is going to, as they must, respond, and that's where it's going to get shaky because eventually the administration's going to give the Israelis the green light to just go in and finish these guys if they can't convince Qatar and Turkey to make these guys drop their arms, lay down their weapons.
See, I'll disagree with you a little bit on this one. I think if more videos are released by Israel or if there are reporters on the ground that are able to actually film what's going on, I see a little bit of a different story, especially I think that Trump's red line will get really, really small if he witnesses what he's with Hamas just executing people on the street. You just can't ignore that. You can't say these are honest brokers of peace this is going on. But what I found hysterical was that the Hamas people are like, well, we don't know where the yellow line is, right? We don't know the yellow line. So Israel literally drew. I mean, right? They put
They put
down.
down giant cement blocks the size of a car and they're painted yellow. Now you know where the line is. Don't cross it.
I absolutely, I absolutely love that they did that. Like, you can't read, fine. You understand anything. Here's the color yellow. It's like it reminds me of that. When AOC got asked, "How do you spell orange?" and she said, "Do you mean the color or the fruit?" And it's stuff you can't make up section. So, anything else to add before we leave?
I think that's it. We got the New York race, and we urge all the New Yorkers get out there and vote like if life depends on it. Vote for Cuomo,
And the
and it's
Virginia
worth
race,
and it's
and
worth
the
saying that
Virgin
Curtis. What's that?
and the Virginia race. Let's not,
And and the Virginia race. Winston Sears, get out there and vote. And this Mendomni guy must be stopped. So Curtis Lee was a selfish prick for not dropping out of the race.
yeah. And again, I just want to state this as we're ending. We're not Cuomo fans here. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not
Cool.
Cuomo fans.
Jay.
This has nothing to do with Cuomo and with any love we have him.
Oh,
Anyway,
I can't
uh,
stand the guy. I
yeah,
think he's a despicable human being, but he would be a million times better for New York than Mendomni. That is what you do. And I love New York more than I hate Cuomo.
you know what? That's perfectly put. I absolutely love that. And I think that's a perfect way to end. I want to thank everybody that's been following us, been helping us, all that stuff. From the bottom of our hearts, always thank you. Don't consider you as our followers. This is just one big group of people that are trying to talk and figure out a solution without screaming at each other. And as Ben Stein always used to say to me, debate is the essence of America. And I pray that that's something that we are bringing to the table is having healthy debate, engaging in topics that are not always comfortable to talk about. With that being said, you could find us everywhere at thedailycheatsheet.com. That's thedailycheatsheet.com. Hopefully, Golan will be able to find a spot in Israel where he could get Wi-Fi tomorrow night and join us. We shall see. But he said he'll definitely be here on Thursday. So there you are, dailycheatsheet.com. I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.
I got to run. I got my workers here.